anybody studying? Is anybody in tech, computer science, or such things? Mathematics? Yeah, have you heard about Ron von Neumann? No, he basically invented computer, or he was one of the big guys who invented computer, and he was born right here in this building. Okay, he of course immigrated to the United States later on, so that's where he really started to invent these things. But he was born and raised here, and we are typically really good in teaching mathematics and such things. That's something we've been historically good at, so it started here also. Yeah. And also many of these people were Jewish. There was a very famous Protestant school, high school, but one of the students went as well. And it was great in teaching mathematics, and it raised even Nobel Prize winners. But many of them were Jewish, and they left the war during the Second World War. When they moved to the Slovak part, that's the name of the street.
I do like, why did you choose a singer that was plays not in Yeah, I have my voice is definitely Да, да, он будет петь, даже не он, а кто-то будет петь.
Behind me is a huge square. We'll take a quick peek at it. It's called Liberty Square. And there was originally a huge military building called Neugebäude, which was new building, which was mainly a prison for political prisoners. The Habsburg kept their people who rose up against them. And when we made up with the Habsburgs in 1867, then they decided to give all these political prisoners amnesty, set them free, and even demolish their prison to show that they never want to lock up people for political reasons. And this is why it's called the Liberty Square. Okay, but before that, there were long struggles between the Hungarians and the Habsburgs, and they did imprison a lot of people after the freedom fight in 1848-49. There was a revolutionary Hungarian government set up also during that freedom fight, and the leader of that was Mr. Batthyány, or Count Batthyány. They were mainly aristocrats, the leaders of this fight. And most of the leaders of this freedom fight were executed on the 6th of October, which wasn't a long time ago, the anniversary. That's why so many flowers here now in 1849. So it was by the corner of that big prison building right here where they executed the revolutionary prime minister of Hungary, the first free prime minister of a kind of democratic Hungary. And ever since, there's an eternal flame commemorating him here. It's always been a place for political protests as well, especially where people wanted freedom for Hungary. For example, in 1988, some young university students, it's always the students who start these things, so came here and a young law student climbed to the top of this eternal flame monument and started to speak about how we should kick the Soviets out of this country and how we should have free elections and how we should make Hungary an autonomic free country. The police took him down from there, roughed him up a little bit, and then took him to jail. The name of this young law student was Viktor Orban. Today he is the Prime Minister of Hungary. So that's where his political career started. Okay? Szeretnétek? Freedom Bistro or Liberty Bistro. Szabadság means freedom or liberty in Hungarian to help you start studying the language. And I think one of the prettiest buildings of this neighborhood is that one right there. A beautiful example for Art Nouveau, or as we call it, secession in Hungary. Gorgeous, right? What details. Um, this area is even newer than where we started. Around the hotel, that was the third of the 19th century after the compromise with the Habsburgs. In 1867, the Habsburgs said we can have our own parliament, but we didn't have a house for the parliament. And obviously, that was a huge job to build a house of parliament for Hungary. It took a very long time. It was supposed to be ready by the 1000th birthday of Hungary in 1896, but in 20 years they couldn't finish it. It took another 9 years to completely finish the building, but this whole neighborhood was built around the parliament on the turn of the 19th and 20th century, around 1900. And by then they thought, okay, we have enough historic buildings, so we can open up for something completely new. And this is how Art Nouveau got really great in these blocks. There are 3 more gorgeous Art Nouveau buildings right here, but we can't go very close to them because you see the fence What can be in them? What needs this much security?
Except money.
Embassy. Whose embassy can this be? United States, of course, is the American embassy behind this huge fence. But the bank wasn't a bad guess either. I'm pretty sure this is the safest block in the whole city because behind the American embassy, there's the National Treasury. That's where we, in theory, keep our gold stash. And then on the other side of the American embassy, there's the National Bank of Hungary. The whole Liberty Square, when it was rebuilt in the end of the 19th century, they planned it to be the new financial center of the new capital. So it was all banks and trade unions, headquarters, and such things that were built here. Okay, so it changed a little bit with history, obviously. Already in the 1930s, the American embassy set up here in this building, and then especially towards the middle of the square, a lot of new additions were made. For example, there's a gentleman pointing towards something in front of the American embassy. Let's take just a quick look at him. I'm sure that a lot of you will recognize him. Does he seem familiar to anybody?
Yeah, George Bush, I guess.
Yes, exactly. It's George Bush, the older one. Okay. So the first president of the United States was the first American president who ever visited Hungary. He came here in 1989, just when the change of regime happened here, and he gave a beautiful speech about how Hungary has great hopes for becoming a great and very free, very liberated country. And he promised a lot of help in that as well. What was especially great about that speech, it was held in front of the parliament, and he had it prepared, written down on paper. But as he would start speaking, there came down a huge rain pouring, and the papers got soaking wet. So he just put them aside and started speaking from heart, and people were very much touched by that. That's why I guess he's holding that paper in his hand. That's the speech that he put aside and just said something that he felt like he must say. It was erected almost exactly a year ago on the 23rd of October last year, because it was not just the anniversary of the revolution in 1956 against the Soviets, also in 1989, that was the day when they announced Hungary becoming a democratic republic from a communist people's republic. Okay, so that's when Hungary became a free and more autonomic country. And it was also erected, the year was picked because that was the 30th anniversary of the Soviet Union falling apart and the end of state socialism in this area in Central and Eastern Europe. Okay, so that's why this statue is here. But the other reason for him and maybe pointing that direction might be, well, the thing he's pointing at. Let's go and see it from the front. Sightseeing. No. So which empire might this commemorate?
Soviet Union.
Yes, the Soviet Union, or more precisely, it's commemorating the Soviet heroes who liberated Hungary from the Nazis and Budapest from the Nazis. The thing was that in the Second World War we were allied with Hitler, because in the First World War we entered as part of the Habsburg Empire and we lost. And the Habsburg Empire was divided up into tiny countries based on ethnicity, with which Hungary lost more than 2/3 of its territories.
70
And that was devastating for us. So we felt like we would do anything. I mean, not me personally, but the leaders of the country back then, to win those territories back. They would even go allies with Hitler for that. And obviously, it wasn't a very good idea for many, many reasons, amongst others, that we lost the Second World War also, and we lost everything all over again. And on top of that, we weren't just allies with Hitler, but when they weren't satisfied with our cooperation anymore, they occupied Hungary. They made a coup and they removed the Hungarian government from its power, and they gave the power to the Hungarian Nazis in October 1944. So we really needed the Soviets to have that come and help us get rid of our own Nazis, and also the German army, which was stationed here. Hitler decided this was going to be the last stand against the Soviets, where they have to stop them from getting to Vienna and getting to Berlin, no matter what the cost. So this is also why Budapest was destroyed so horribly during these more than 100 days while the siege of the city lasted. And thousands of people died daily, about 1,000 actually. So more than 100,000 altogether. A lot of them obviously Soviets, and many of them were buried here underneath this statue. The remains are not here anymore. They were taken back to Russia, but they left the monument here to commemorate them. There's a list of the names of the people who were buried here. You can see them with gold on the two sides, and there's that little picture in the middle that's depicting the Soviet heroes fighting in front of the Elizabeth Bridge. So that's why was today a wide bridge, but that's a newer bridge. It was blown up in the Second World War. And on the other side, there are Soviet soldiers fighting in front of the parliament. Okay, and the inscription says, "Glory to the liberating Soviet heroes." And then on top, there's obviously the 5-point star for global international communism. There's this fact that we keep this statue here and we take care of it. There's 24/7 police surveillance. You probably already saw the police walk by and walk around it. When they are not walking around the monument, they are usually just there in front of the American embassy, chit-chatting with the guards of the American embassy. So that's world peace come through right here very often. And
That is
it's really a nice monument, but there must be a reason that they kept this here. I mean, we had several similar monuments in the city, and at the change of the regime, this was the one that Russia insisted to keep. Why? Well, it might be not too wild of a guess to say, because it's in front of the American embassy, right? So that might be why they felt like they need to put George Bush there, and he wasn't the first one. This square really starts to feel like it's a playground of superpowers. Okay, so let's see who else is behind the statue. So that is the National Bank. It always was, and this building right here, it was the stock exchange of Budapest. Both stock and product exchange of Budapest originally. That's why it's so big. But it was shut down during communism. Then for a while it was the headquarters of the Hungarian national TV, but then they had to sell it for financial reasons around 2008, during the recession. And now it belongs to a hotel company, as much as I know. They are renovating it, but we are not exactly sure yet when it's going to be ready or what it's going to be used for. Another gorgeous building being renovated. It's a very interesting solution when they paint how it will look like after the renovation on the scaffold, right?
right.
So who recognizes this gentleman?
Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan,
President.
exactly. You know the American presidents really
Yeah.
well.
Abraham Lincoln, everyone.
especially the Republicans. So he was the 14th president of the United States. George Bush was his vice president first. And the statue was erected for the 100th anniversary of his birth, leading our parliament towards an American-like democracy. But the Soviet monument is in his way, but they swear that's just a coincidence. Okay? If you want, you can shake hands with the president or with the movie star, if that's what you prefer. He was a movie star as well before he went into politics. And then we will continue towards the parliament. And if everything goes well, we will meet up the other groups there for a picture. But it's so funny, we are always looking forward to the next statue. Which side it will be on.